Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to our /EntitledPeople, where Karens seem to think that they can have what they want, when they want. And in today's episode, a Karen freaks out because she's convinced OP's ruining her son, guys. And all he's doing is sitting at a restaurant. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. I have an invisible disability and a service dog. She's a cardiac alert dog, and I bring her everywhere. And it's been such a big quality of life difference for me. Yesterday, I was in Bulk Foods buying some supplies, and I brought my dog with me. While buying candy, a girl nearby starts crying. That's when a mother walked over and she demanded that I leave the store immediately. I tried telling her that my dog was a working dog and was not a pet, and she wasn't having it. She didn't believe me because I was too young to have a medical condition. She then said that regardless of whether or not my dog was an authentic working dog, her child had autism and was terrified, so I had to leave the store and wait till they were done shopping, and then I could come back inside. At that, I refused, and I continued shopping. I simply went to another area of the store to get the rest of the stuff on my shopping list. The woman had to bring her child and leave the store because she was too scared. The entire time, she kept saying that I should be ashamed of myself for scaring a child and refusing to leave when I was told to. My dog was wearing a harness with patches on it to clearly identify it as a service dog, and to not distract while she's working. A few days later, I saw Karen again with her child, but this time in Walmart while grocery shopping. I made the mistake of ignoring my dog when she was alerting to my heart rate. I genuinely thought that she wanted the sandwich I was eating, but boy was I ever wrong. I end up really dizzy and out of breath, and I had to sit down in the corner while she was doing deep pressure therapy. I must have been on the floor for like 10 minutes. And during that time, a staff member at Walmart came to check on me and ask if I was alright. They gave me a free bottle of water as well, and I'm very appreciative of that. Anyways, while I was down, the same child saw me again from a distance and had another meltdown. She was screaming and crying about my dog being there because she was terrified. Now, I can understand why she may be scared because my dog's by no means small. She's a 115-pound female cane corso. Aside from alert and response, she's also trained for mobility assistance. Her breed typically isn't used as a service dog, but she was a natural. I got her as a pet dog, and she became the service dog I needed. She's 100% a good girl. This time, however, the woman did not leave the store with her child that was having a meltdown. Instead, she had the audacity to call 911 on me. Eventually, the cops show up, and she kept shouting that I was faking having a disability because I was way too young to be disabled, and that it was illegal for me to have my service dog anywhere near food indoors. She then screamed at me and said the least I could do is be considerate and stay home, away from everyone, and keep my dog at home where it belongs. My dog was very clearly vested with tags that says service dog. I showed the cops my medical note I carry, stating I require a service dog. In the end, the manager banned that woman from coming to the local Walmart for a year, and the cops only gave her a warning for wasting their time, and then escorted her off the property. It's good to know that Karen got what she deserved, guys, and seriously, how the heck was she constantly telling OP that they're too young to be disabled? Like, if OP's way too young to be disabled, how's her daughter disabled enough that accommodations must be made for her? But we all know Karens though, right? Rules for thee, not for me. Here's some background. Every year, my company sets up a booth at a carnival, and we engage several part-timers to assist at the carnival. The part-timers are required to go around the carnival ground to distribute flyers, share information, and direct visitors to our booth. So here's the story. On the day of the carnival, after setting up, I meet up with the part-timers to prepare them for the day. Out of all the part-timers, only Karen was late. She mentioned she was going to be 15 minutes late, but it was closer to an hour. As we couldn't wait, I briefed the others and deployed them for the day. When Karen arrived, she had her kid in tow. The kid was like 5 or 6 years old. Due to job nature, we can't have her lugging her kid while working, and Karen knew this. Karen says to me, "My husband can't handle the kid, so I had to bring her along." I say to her, "I can't have you working with your kid." Karen then says, "It's not my problem. If you don't like it, get someone to watch over her." My colleague, who was watching this unfold, offered to watch her kid. He was only required to help out during the start and end of the carnival, so he was entirely free during the event. I thought alright, since he was free. Colleague says I can watch over her. I'll get her some food, watch some shows, play some games, but you'll need to pay me. At that, Karen says, whatever. But I'm not paying you for your time, only for my kid. My colleague grins and says, sure. And I was flabbergasted. My colleague told me not to worry because he had a plan. Once Karen started working, colleague brought her kid systematically through every single booth throughout the entire carnival. It was the kid's dream come true, and I believe her best day ever. Whatever she wanted to eat, my colleague bought. She saw a lot of shows and won many prizes. And since colleague had a staff pass, he didn't need to pay for the shows, only for the kid. At the end of the carnival, when we were clocking the hours worked, Karen had the nerve to insist to be paid full, even though she was late 1 hour. She said that because of various reasons, due to her kid, she would have been early. Karen was ranting, and I didn't really pay any attention, but it was about how I'll never understand as I don't have kids, and how she deserves it because she was a mother. My manager nearby winked at me and took over. He said he was very pleased with the day's sales and how we were very supportive of her, and we should give kids the best. He said not to worry about the hours she worked, and Karen will be paid in full. After hearing this, not even a single thanks from Karen. She declared in a loud voice, at least someone understands parenting. And while saying that, she had this condescending and victorious look on her face. Thankfully, it didn't last very long. The sucker punch for Karen was that her daughter had spent roughly $100. And with Karen's pay at $15 for 8 hours, that equals out to $120. So she made a whopping $20 the whole day. Colleague made it a point to keep track of the expenses, like receipts, ticket stubs, etc., and took tons of photos. Of course, Karen threw a fit, but with the amount of evidence and her daughter vouching for all the fun she had, Karen had no case, except to yell, "I'm not paying for any of this," and then grabbed her daughter and stormed off. We look forward on payday when we issue her a check for $20, after subtracting the amount her daughter spent. Talk about free babysitting backfiring on Karen, right? And guys, I have to add that what OP's colleague did was awesome. Like, that person could have easily stuck that kid in a tent and gave them a bag of chips for the whole day. But no, they made sure that kid had a blast. At Karen's expense, of course. So OP did come back in the comments to say that they're gonna have 2 checks ready for Karen. One is a check for $20, and if she accepts it, they'll continue to work with her in the future, aka keep her employed. But if she refuses, they will give her the $120 check that she's rightfully owed, and then cut ties with her. So I'm a 21-year-old female, and every Tuesday, I have a really busy schedule. My first class goes from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., and my second class goes from 3 to 5 p.m., so I have a lot of free time between lectures. I'll often go to the campus gym and do a full-body workout. On this day, I do my workout, weights, machines, etc., and I decided to go walk the track that's upstairs in the building. Now at this point, I should point out that I have back acne. It's kind of gross looking, but it usually doesn't stop me from wearing my sports bra in the gym. I was doing the track when this older 50s woman passes by me, and she shot me this dirty look. I figured she had a good look at my back, and I just shrugged it off. I then got defensive, and I shot back a look that said, "I know I have back acne." After a bit, we end up meeting up at the same spot where she first stared at me, and she said something along the lines of, "Honey, you need to cover that up. People don't need to see that, it's gross." Despite immediately knowing what she was talking about, I asked her what she wanted me to cover up exactly. And Karen shot back, "Your back zits, it's gross." I then ripped into her about why the F she was judging me and that my back acne was none of her business. I said it pretty audibly, and some runners started looking at us. At that, Karen scoffed and said millennials are so sensitive these days and that she was just trying to help me. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I said something along the lines of, "First of all, acne should not be trapped in a sweaty area. It'll produce more of it. Secondly, why are you telling me how to dress at the gym? My acne is none of your business, and it's not bothering you." I just finished my workout, and I thought nothing else of it. I just went home. But I came into the gym this morning, and as I was walking to the change room, this lady looks up, probably to acknowledge the person coming in. She then looked me up and down and said, "Come here, sweetheart, come here," wagging her finger at me. I walked over to her, and she told me that she saw the whole thing yesterday, and she was pissed. She firstly went into a rant how body acne is nothing to be ashamed of, and how I should continue to work out with it in the open because it doesn't bother her. And I'll admit, it really did feel awkward, but I thanked her. But that wasn't all. She then told me the details. Apparently yesterday, when she was in the change room and she saw Karen come in, she asked the woman to come here right now, and then she yelled at her at the top of her lungs in front of the whole change room, saying how dare she shame someone like that, and how would she feel if she went off on her. The lady got loud and she got nasty. The Karen didn't know what to say. She was exposed. And get this, the whole change room just joined in. Old women and young college girls were losing their mind on this bitch. And she starts crying due to embarrassment. The woman mentioned to me that she didn't report her to the front desk at all. She said to me they wouldn't have punished her at all. They come across hundreds of people. What would they do about one woman who they'd probably never see? So I had to punish her. Guys, I absolutely love that the lady stood up for OP when she wasn't around, and I especially love it that Karen was given a taste of her own medicine and ended up crying of embarrassment after being called out by the whole frickin' locker room guys. Can't say she didn't deserve it, right? So here's a bit of backstory relevant to the events. I'm a transgender man, and I had my top surgery a little over a year ago. However, for personal and medical reasons, I decided to not go through with HRT. Because of that, and the fact that my height's around 4'9", I'm stuck being perceived as a teen. I'm 35 years old. So now on to the story. I was hanging out at my favorite coffee shop, and I always sit in the smoking area as I'm a smoker. Anyways, the law over here states that to be able to stay at a smoking area, you need to be legal age to smoke, which is 18 years old. Keep in mind though, this law is not as harsh and strict as other places, like the US. I've also been a regular at this coffee place for 10 years, and I know most waiters by name. So Karen enters with a kid around the age of 5, and she invades 2 tables. It's a bit rude, since smoking area only has 6 tables, but whatever. One for her and the other for her son, who proceeds to take out some crayons and a coloring book. I ignore all this as I'm lost in the book I'm reading. At some point, I do a crazy thing, like lighting a smoke in the smoking area. And a few seconds later, I hear the dreaded sound of Karen clearing her throat. I just ignore her, and the next exchange occurs. Karen says, "Hey, young man, listen to me." Me, annoyed that my reading was interrupted, say, "Yeah?" Karen says, "Don't you think it's a bit rude that you're blowing smoke all over my son? He's 5. I then point to the big sign on the wall that says, "Smoking area, plus 18 only." Karen then says, "Do you even know how to talk? Are you stupid? Answer me. You're way too young to be smoking." I still don't say anything. I proceed to take the headphones out of my backpack and plug them in. Karen does keep speaking, but by the miracle of technology, I can't make out a single word she says. I figured that was all. A few minutes later, I notice some commotion around me, and I begin to hear the sound of Karen's banshee howls. I look up, and I see Karen arguing with one of the waiters, pointing at me. So of course, I take my headphones off to hear what that's all about. Karen says, "You have to do something. He's clearly underage, and he's blowing smoke all over my son. Don't you think for a second that I won't call the police on this?" The waiter says to her, "Ma'am, as I've already told you, I don't need to ask that young man's ID. He's been coming here for years." Karen says, "I don't care. I know the law and my rights. He needs to show his ID to stay on the smoking area," which is kind of right, I will concede. The waiter, after a few minutes of arguing with Karen, taps my shoulder. He says to me, "Hey man, I'm really sorry. Could you just take out your ID so this lady can move on?" I then take out my ID from my back pocket, which still has my dead name on it. The waiter says to Karen, "Okay ma'am, you can see that he's shown me a valid form of identification." Karen then screams, "Let me see that." She then takes my ID from the waiter's hand and she screams, "This is clearly fake. That's a woman's name. How dare you impersonate a woman?" The waiter says, "Ma'am, that ID is real and you need to give it back to him right now." Karen screams, "No, I'm calling the police right now so they can confiscate this and question him." She then looks at me and says, "Why are you carrying a fake ID? That's a felony. You have a lot to explain, young man. At this point, I finally lose my patience, and I say, lady, I don't owe you an explanation. But for the sake of ending this, and me going back to my book, I'm a transgender man. I was born a woman, and my ID still has to reflect my gender identity. All settled? Good. Now give me back my ID. Karen's face went from normal to red in less than 3 seconds, and she looked visibly disturbed. She then screams at me saying, "You are a freak. How dare you stand so close to my child? You are going to corrupt him." She now addresses the waiter and says, "How dare you allow these freaks here?" The kid then looks at her mom and says, "Mommy, what's transgender mean?" Me, knowing that my afternoon's already spoiled and thinking, what the hell, say to the boy, "I'm transgender. That means I..." And Karen interrupts me. She says to me, "Don't you talk to my child. Don't you even dare. You are evil and you've just corrupted my son. I demand compensation. Now my child is ruined." Now, as you can imagine, by then, we had a pretty small crowd watching over, and we eventually got the manager's attention. The manager comes up to us and says, "What's going on out here? Ma'am, I need you to lower your voice and moderate your language." Karen then says, "I will talk as loud as I want. It's outrageous what happens here. Are you in charge?" The manager says, "Yes, ma'am, I'm the manager of this coffee place. And if you don't lower your voice, I'll have to ask you to leave. Now, explain to me, why are you yelling at my staff and customers?" Karen just ignores him and she screams, "I will have this place shut down in a heartbeat if I don't get compensation right now." The manager, being a bit sassy at this point, says, "And why exactly should we compensate you? What for?" Karen says, "That freak is making my boy transgender. You allow people like this to be here and corrupt young minds?" The manager says, "And again, how does that entitle you to any compensation?" Karen says, "I'll have to pay for therapy for my son. Maybe even ask my congregation to pray over him, and that costs money. This is reckless endangerment, and those freaks should be kept away from innocent, God-fearing people." Out of nowhere, a customer screams, "Come on, lady, stop. You've been drumming our ears for 10 minutes with your nonsense. If anyone's entitled to compensation, it's us for having to listen to you." The manager says, "I agree with him, ma'am. Please leave the premises." Karen then grabs her kid and proceeds to leave, but not before saying, "This is not the end of things. I will have your license in no time." The waiter then blocks her way and says, "There's still the matter of the bill, ma'am, and please give the ID back." Karen tells him, "I didn't even get to drink my coffee. It's cold. I shouldn't have to pay." Manager replies, "That sounds like your problem. But if you want, we can call mall security in no time. Let them settle this. And in the meanwhile, also let them write a report of you having your son that's clearly underage on a smoking area." Karen is defeated at this point. It's such a wonderful view. She then throws my ID to the ground and she got her kid and starts leaving. As she left, I couldn't help myself. I just yelled at her kid, "Hey kiddo, remember, you can be anything you wanna be." Karen hears that and huffs and gives me the finger as she walks away. Holy, was that ever a wild ride, guys. And Karens are so freaking silly, right, for demanding compensation for that. And as for the "my child is ruined now" that Karen kept on repeating, like if she thinks that 10-minute interaction has officially ruined her kid, she's definitely failing as a parent. So my friend, who's a 20-year-old female, and I, a 19-year-old male, have been friends for a few years, and she recently got engaged. A week ago, I got a DM from her for a small costume party she was hosting, as a celebration for getting engaged. I asked if there was a theme, and she said there wasn't. Now, I'm a cosplayer, so I had a lot of choices. I didn't want to rock up in an anime cosplay, so I thought it would be funny to go to an engagement party as the corpse bride. I arrived at her house yesterday, and everything seemed normal. A few people complimented my costume, and I was having a lot of fun. After 10 minutes, my friend's fiance walks out in a black tuxedo and announced that this was actually their wedding. Apparently, my friend saw a video of someone doing this, and she wanted to do the same. He then asked us to all go to the backyard for the ceremony to begin. I went straight to him. I asked if I should quickly go home and change my outfit, and that I would get back before it started. He told me it was fine since I didn't know this was the wedding. I trusted him, and I followed everyone outside. They got married, and everything seemed good. The reception was just in their house again, so everyone walked back inside and picked up where they left off. I tried talking to my friend and celebrating with her, but she kept making excuses to not talk to me. I assumed she was just tired from the big day and she wanted some alone time. I didn't bother her after that, and the party soon ended. I got home and half an hour passed when my phone starts getting notifications after notifications, like dozens of messages. I checked, and it was my friend texting me. She was cussing me out, and she was telling me how I ruined her wedding. Now, of course, I was really confused, and I asked her what I did, and that only made her more angry. She then told me that it was basic knowledge to not wear a wedding dress to a wedding. I reminded her that I had no idea it was a wedding, and that I asked her now husband if I should change, and he said no, it's all fine. She didn't respond, but I did get a text from her husband. He asked why I would tell her he said it was fine. I told him because he said it was fine. He then said how I should have changed anyways and that it's my fault the two are now fighting. I've tried texting her that I was sorry, and if I had known, I wouldn't have done it. I woke up today and I saw her and her husband have blocked me on everything, basically unfriended me over this. So am I the a-hole for not changing out of the wedding dress when I found out it was actually a wedding? Oh man guys, this is such a ridiculous freakout on the bride and groom's part. And to answer OP's question, no, I don't think he's an a-hole at all, especially since the groom gave the okay. And guys, just in case you missed it, again, OP said that they're a man and they thought it was a costume party. Like, he literally thought it would be funny to come as the corpse bride. Clearly nothing malicious there, and clearly he wasn't trying to ruin the wedding by outshining the bride and being vindictive in any way. Like, it's not his fault at all that they sprung a surprise wedding on him. And seriously, the groom is an a-hole for backpedaling and not defending OP when he was the one who greenlighted the corpse bride dress. I'd say if they're unfriending OP over this, then good riddance. Like, do you really want people like that in your lives? And guys, OP does come back with an update that says, since they blocked me on everything, I didn't try to reach out since that would be a waste of effort, but I didn't block them back. If they wanted to talk, I was fine with it. 2 days ago, I was unblocked by my friend. She asked if we could call and talk about what happened. I agreed. She apologized for blowing up on me like she did, but she also told me that she was still upset. I was only made aware because of the comments, and now her, that wearing wedding attire to anything wedding related is common sense. All I knew was the no white on the wedding day. Honestly, after people informed me, I felt awful and downright stupid. So I apologized back for not running it through her like I should have, since I didn't know. I know lots of people were telling me to cut her off, but I've known her since I was 14, so I'm glad we can stay friends. Her husband, on the other hand, told her that he came up to me and asked me to change, and apparently I told him it didn't matter because I was already there. Or something along those lines. She was crying a lot while telling me. After she blew up at me and I told her the real story, she got pissed at her husband. That's when the husband suggested that both of them block me so the fight would stop. She agreed to it, but she was still upset by it all. Eventually, she started asking people who were at the wedding to see what happened. 3 people saw me walk up to him and heard me ask, and this is where she learned that her husband lied to her. Again, a huge fight between the two. It turns out that he's hated me since I met them 5 years ago. I became good friends with her, but not him, and he felt as though I was trying to take his girlfriend. I don't know why he'd wait 5 years, but he decided the day of his wedding that was the best time to get rid of me. I'm not sure what's gonna happen to them in the future. She's staying at another friend's house until her and her husband are able to talk about it. I doubt I'll update any more. Guys, I'm glad OP and his friend talked it out and that she found out her husband was lying to her. And guys, I know OP apologized, but I still don't believe he should have. Like, yeah, it is common sense to not wear a wedding dress to a wedding, but when you're told it's a costume party and a wedding is surprise sprung on you, like, how the heck is that common sense, right? Guys, let me know your thoughts. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /EntitledPeople. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/EntitledPeople episode. Another one where OP's neighbor is convinced that she's running a brothel and reports her to 911. It's such a crazy story, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.